Hello and welcome live from New Delhi. You're watching DD India News Hour, India's voice to the world. I'm Gautam Roy, and coming up in the next hour, India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi unveils Bharat Parv 2024 on the occasion of Parakram Divas at the Red Fort in New Delhi, says the world watches India's every action eagerly and enthusiastically. Britain plans to announce new sanctions targeting the Houthis. Rishi Sunak tells UK Parliament that the latest US-UK strikes in Yemen were in self-defense. Nikki Haley sweeps 6% midnight poll in Dixville Notch as voters in the state of New Hampshire cast the first votes in her clash with Donald Trump. And in the Australian Open, Gauff grinds past Marta Kostyuk in the women's singles semis. Novak Djokovic beats Taylor Fritz to enter the men's last four. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi inaugurated Parakram Divas 2024 program at the Red Fort on the occasion of the birth anniversary of Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose. The 9-day event, which will run till the 31st of this month, will host a rich array of activities that delve into the profound legacy of Netaji and the Azad Hind Fauj.
India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi attended Parakram Divas celebrations at Red Fort to mark Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose's birth anniversary. He launched Bharat Parv to showcase diversity with Republic Day tableau and cultural exhibits. While addressing the event, Prime Minister Narendra Modi said that the entire world witnessed a historic milestone in India's cultural consciousness. He said the world and the entire humanity experienced the energy of Pran Pratishtha in the Ram temple.
ये पर्व है वोकल फॉर लोकल को अपनाने का। ये पर्व है पर्यटन को बढ़ावा देने का। ये पर्व है विविधता के सम्मान का। ये पर्व है एक भारत श्रेष्ठ भारत को नई ऊंचाई देने का। मैं सभी से आह्वान करूंगा कि हम सब इस पर्व से जुड़कर देश की डाइवर्सिटीज को सेलिब्रेट करें.
While remembering Netaji, Prime Minister Modi said that Netaji Bose is role model for the Viksit Bharat. He said his government is committed to fulfilling Netaji's ideals and building an India of his dreams. PM Modi said that world watches India's every action eagerly and enthusiastically.
जब दुनिया में कुछ लोग भारत में लोकतंत्र के प्रति आशंकित थे, तब नेताजी ने उन्हें भारत के लोकतंत्र की उसके अतीत को याद दिलाया. नेताजी कहते थे कि डेमोक्रेसी ह्यूमन इंस्टीट्यूशन है और भारत के अलग अलग स्थानों में सैकड़ों वर्षों से ये व्यवस्था चली आ रही है. आज जब भारत लोकतंत्र की जननी की अपनी पहचान पर गर्व करने लगा है, तो ये नेताजी के विचारों को भी मजबूत करता है.
Prime Minister Modi visits an exhibition at Red Fort organized on the occasion of Parakram Divas. The celebration explores Netaji's legacy and Azad Hind Fauj with immersive exhibitions of the archives. Syed Absarul Hassan's report for DD India.
India is celebrating a day of valor or Parakram Divas today. The day is celebrated across the country to commemorate the birth anniversary of Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose, the leader of the Indian National Army who fought against the mighty British Empire during India's freedom struggle. Parakram Divas celebrations started from the year 2021 after Prime Minister Modi called upon the nation to commemorate the occasion and pay tribute to all those luminaries who sacrificed their lives during India's freedom movement.
Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose, one of the tallest leaders of India's freedom struggle, was born on 23rd January 1897. Netaji, who established the first independent government of India, was the second leader of Azad Hind Fauj, the Indian National Army, and played an instrumental role in the freedom struggle of India. To honor his indomitable spirit and invaluable contribution, the nation observes Parakram Divas, Day of Valor, every year on 23rd January since 2021. Prime Minister Narendra Modi attended the 125th birth anniversary celebrations of Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose in Kolkata, where he said that Netaji gave new direction to the dream of independent India. PM Modi also asserted that Netaji is embodiment of India's might and inspiration.
नेताजी अखंड भारत की आजाद हिंद सरकार के पहले मुखिया थे और ये मेरा सौभाग्य है कि आजादी की उस पहली झलक को सुरक्षित रखने के लिए 2018 में हमने अंडमान के उस द्वीप का नाम नेताजी सुभाष चंद्र बोस द्वीप रखा.
It was in 2022, Prime Minister Narendra Modi also paid tribute to Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose on his 125th birth anniversary, unveiling a hologram statue of Netaji under the canopy near India Gate.
भारत मां के वीर सपूत नेताजी सुभाष की जन्म जयंती है. देश पराक्रम दिवस के रूप में इस प्रेरणा दिवस को मनाता है.
Soon after the celebrations, the digital hologram statue was replaced by a 28-feet granite statue and was unveiled by Prime Minister Narendra Modi. The statue is completely hand-sculpted using traditional techniques and modern tools. In New Delhi, Akshay Dongre, DD India.
And now moving on to the Israel-Hamas conflict is going on. Israel's army has said that a total of 24 Israeli soldiers were killed in an attack in Gaza, making it the largest single loss of lives for the military since the conflict began. Meanwhile, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has vowed to stop the conflict only when the Hamas is eliminated. And Qatar has confirmed that mediation efforts to end the conflict are underway. Mayor Mercury's deep dive gives us a 360-degree perspective into the situation.
The latest Israel-Hamas conflict is the longest and most brutal yet, with no end in sight. On Monday, over 20 Israeli soldiers were killed in Gaza, making it the deadliest day for the country's forces since their ground operation began against Hamas. These soldiers lost their lives in a Hamas attack. Country's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu mourned the deaths of soldiers and vowed to stop only when the Hamas is eliminated.
Together with the citizens of Israel, I grieve for each and every one of them. The IDF is conducting a thorough examination of the disaster. We bow our heads to the memory of our fallen, and yet we do not for a moment stop striving for an irreplaceable goal, the achievement of absolute victory.
Israeli army spokesperson described the sequence of the deadly incident.
It seems that an RPG missile was fired by terrorists at the tank that was guarding the force. In parallel, there was an explosion of two-story buildings. The structures collapsed as a result of this explosion at a time when most of the force were inside them and nearby. The buildings likely exploded as a result of mines that our forces had planted inside in order to destroy the buildings and the terrorist infrastructure in the area.
Israeli citizens too expressed their sorrow over the deaths of soldiers in Gaza.
Well, that's horrible. That's horrendous. It's terrible. You know, it's our sons, it's our brothers. It's terrible. But we got to do what we got to do so that October 7th doesn't happen again.
Israeli forces have surrounded southern Gaza's Khan Yunis, resulting in the death of numerous Hamas terrorists. They are now advancing further into the Hamas stronghold. Tuesday saw Qatar confirming that mediation efforts to end the conflict between Israel and Hamas are underway.
With regards to the mediation efforts, they are currently still ongoing. Qatar has not stopped since the first day, as I say, every week. We are taking every opportunity to exchange point of views and get to solutions while communicating with both sides of the conflict, in addition to the different regional and international parties. The Qatari efforts are ongoing.
The latest chapter to a decades-old conflict began after Hamas launched an unprecedented assault on Israel on the 7th of October last year, with hundreds of gunmen infiltrating communities near the Gaza Strip. Israeli military says more than 200 soldiers and civilians, including women and children, were taken to Gaza as hostages. Mihir Makhri, DD, India.
Now, aiming for a geopolitical showdown in West Asia, new sanctions are being planned by Britain for targeting the financing of the Houthi attacks on commercial shipping in the Red Sea. The next report tells us more about the latest round of strikes carried out jointly by the UK and the US against Houthi hideouts in Yemen as well.
Bracing for a geopolitical showdown in West Asia, Britain plans to announce new sanctions targeting Houthi financing of attacks on shipping in the Red Sea.
We are going to use the most effective means at our disposal to cut off the Houthis' financial resources where they are used to fund these attacks. We are working closely with the United States on this and plan to announce new sanction measures in the coming days.
The United States and the United Kingdom launched a new round of strikes on Houthi targets on Monday as the fighter group continues to target commercial shipping in the Red Sea. Sunak said that initial evidence from Monday's strikes showed all intended targets destroyed.
The strikes were limited to carefully selected targets with maximum care taken to protect civilian lives. We have already shot down dozens of missiles and drones targeted at civilian vessels and at the Royal Navy. And the Houthis have conducted at least 12 further attacks on shipping since the 11th of January, including just last night, shortly before our strikes were conducted.
A joint statement from the two countries said they had carried out 8 strikes on Monday night with support from Australia, Bahrain, Canada and the Netherlands. British Foreign Minister David Cameron said on Tuesday that action to degrade Houthi military capabilities in Yemen could continue.
What the Houthis are doing is unacceptable, it's illegal, and it's threatening the freedom of navigation. That's why we've taken the action. Alongside that action is a whole set of measures we'll be taking, including sanctions and other pressure to put on the Houthis, combined, of course, with the action the Royal Navy is taking with others in the Red Sea.
Monday's strikes came after the Houthis claimed to have conducted a successful attack on the US military cargo ship Ocean Jazz in the Gulf of Aden. This was denied by the US military, terming the claim patently false. The Houthis have said the attacks are in response to Israel's war in Gaza and to show their support for the Palestinians. The UK's Ministry of Defence said the Houthis have conducted more than 30 attacks on international shipping since mid-November. This conflict has compelled major shipping conglomerates to halt operations in the region, redirecting their vessels on the longer route around the Cape of Good Hope in South Africa. This shift not only disrupts trade between Asia and Europe, but casts a shadow over the vital maritime routes, leaving a profound impact on global commerce. Bureau Report, DD India.
Let's now take you across to DD India's Sarah Coates joining us live from Tel Aviv. Good evening to you, Sarah. What does the loss of the lives of 24 Israeli soldiers in a single day mean for the fighting against the Hamas, and what does it tell us about the current status and the future of the Gaza conflict?
Well, look, we've heard from the Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu. He's come out to say we will not stop fighting until absolute victory, adding that lessons need to be learned. Now, you just mentioned in that report that this was the deadliest day for Israeli soldiers since this ground operation began in October. We're talking here 24 people killed in the space of a day, 21 of those in a single incident alone. Now, we've heard from the IDF spokesperson also, Daniel Hagari. He said that the troops were destroying Hamas sites as part of the army's efforts to create what he's calling a buffer zone in this area around Khan Yunis, so some of these border communities can start to go back home. Now, he went on to say that an RPG was then fired at a tank, which triggered a number of explosives which were rigged up in homes ready to detonate. This then caused these buildings to collapse on top of these soldiers, which then saw a very dangerous rescue mission following that as other troops tried to get their comrades out. Now, it's certainly really rattling the Israeli public today. Everyone is forced to serve in the military, and most people here really, through some degree, know one of these people who have been killed. As I mentioned, the deadliest day since this ground operation. The IDF says an investigation will be launched with a number of funerals already held today in Jerusalem.
Right, and the UK is planning fresh sanctions against the Houthis after carrying out another bunch of strikes against them in Yemen along with the US. Rishi Sunak has also tried to de-link what's been happening in the Red Sea with the Israel-Hamas conflict. Now, the Houthis surely don't see it that way. Where are these hostilities going?
Well, look, the Houthis remain defiant. They say they will continue carrying out any attacks on any ships linked to Israel for as long as it remains inside the Gaza Strip. We had a statement a little earlier today from the Houthi leader. He said that these attacks only make the Yemeni people stronger. But look, of course, there is a lot of fear that this could cause a wider spillover, a wider escalation in the Middle East. We've heard from Britain's Foreign Secretary, Lord Cameron. He has addressed this latest round of strikes, saying that he is confident they've been effective on the Houthis, adding that their narrative on these strikes being related to this war inside the Gaza Strip should not be accepted. Now, we did hear also from the United States pretty stern words late last week. They said that it has other options if these attacks do continue on this major shipping lane there in the Red Sea, but failed to elaborate any further as to what these other options could be.
All right. Well, let's leave it there at the moment. Thanks a lot for joining us, Sarah Coates from Tel Aviv. And still to come up on DD India News Hour, hundreds of thousands of devotees thronged the Ram Janmabhoomi temple in Ayodhya a day after the consecration of Ram Lala's idol. Canada takes the decision to cap new international student visas for 2 years. And German train drivers are set to stage a record 6-day strike from Wednesday, the longest strike in Deutsche Bahn's history.
Stories of such change makers.
Watch Change Makers on DD India.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Gautam Roy. Now, voting is on in New Hampshire, the first in the nation primary going state for both the Republicans and the Democrats in the U.S. presidential candidature race. President Joe Biden isn't even on the ballot in the state's primary, as it's an unofficial one due to a dispute among the Democrats. But for the Republicans, a loss to Donald Trump could very well seal Nikki Haley's fate in this two-horse race after the exit of Ron DeSantis. Here's more.
New Hampshire witnessed a steady stream of US Republican voters on Tuesday morning since the polls opened for the first primary of the presidential candidate race after the Iowa caucuses. The vote in New Hampshire will decide whether Donald Trump gets a smooth ride to the Republican presidential nomination or Nikki Haley gets a leg up in her bid to topple him from the top. There's no one else left in the field after Florida Governor Ron DeSantis quit the contest following the Iowa caucuses declaring in Trump's favor. Even earlier at midnight, 6 registered Republican voters in the northern New Hampshire town of Dixville Notch cast their ballots in a matter of minutes, all favoring Nikki Haley.
I think New Hampshire is going to surprise everybody and that Nikki is going to be the candidate. At least that's what I'm hoping, but I have a really good feeling. She's a fighter and she's not giving up. And I think tonight we showed everybody that Nikki's the one.
But one swallow doesn't make a summer. Just like Iowa, Donald Trump had much more than a double-digit lead over Haley in most polls even before DeSantis exited. Tuesday saw him reaching out to New Hampshire voters, telling them Biden's supporters are backing Haley to get a weak candidate against him, but she will be history pretty soon.
Good competitor, Ron, as you know, Ron DeSantis, and he fought hard and he fought well, and now we have one left. We started off with, really, if you add some Democrats into it, we started off with 13, and now we're down to 2 people. And I think one person will be gone probably tomorrow, and the other one will be gone in November.
Haley's fighting with her back against the wall. She too was in New Hampshire on Tuesday trying to convince voters to avoid a Biden versus Trump redux in 2024.
But let's look at what your options are as you go to vote tomorrow. This really is an option. Do you want more of the same? Or do you want to go forward? 70% of Americans have said they don't want a Trump-Biden rematch. The majority of Americans disapprove of both Biden and Trump.
The Democrats are also voting in their primary in New Hampshire on Tuesday. A dispute between national and local party officials has, however, made Biden the first sitting president not to appear on the ballot. The president instead used a Washington, D.C. lectern to take aim at Republican curbs on abortion rights, a major issue for Democrats expected to boost support in November.
They turned a deeply private and painful matter. That cruel reality is a result of extreme Republicans who for years have made it their mission to end the Roe v. Wade decision. Since Roe was overturned in 21 states, abortion bans are now in effect, many with no exception for rape or incest. We have doctors with us today who are on the front lines of this crisis.
Away from the electioneering, the trial of Jean Carroll's defamation suit against Donald Trump was delayed until Wednesday after a juror fell ill. In all, Trump is facing 91 felony counts, where he has been criminally indicted 4 times already. He has also been barred by courts from the primaries in 2 states, Colorado and Maine, for his role in a bid to overturn the 2020 presidential election through a storming of the U.S. Capitol. His numerous court battles are expected to play out through the primaries well into the presidential face-off. Bureau Report for DD India.
And we'll be taking up the New Hampshire primary, the face-off that Donald Trump's is having with Nikki Haley in just a bit with a special guest as well, an expert guest. But we're moving on for the time being. On Tuesday evening, Sandhya Aarti was performed at the Saryu Ghat in Ayodhya with traditional fervour. For the last few years, Saryu Aarti is regularly performed, as you can see in these images, similar to that of the Ganga Aarti in Varanasi. And earlier in the day, the doors of the Sri Ram temple in the Indian holy city of Ayodhya were thrown open to the general public starting Tuesday morning. Hundreds of thousands of devotees thronged the place of worship for the darshan of Ram Lala. The Ram Janmabhoomi Tirth Kshetra Trust has finalized rules and regulations for worship of the deity. Advance booking is required to attend the Aarti. Here's a detailed report.
The Indian holy city of Ayodhya, or Lord Sri Ram's city, is under the grip of a festive atmosphere. Hundreds of devotees started gathering outside the main gates of the Ram temple since Monday night. The devotees waited for hours before the doors of the grand temple opened Tuesday morning. The newly built temple is witnessing a heavy rush of devotees to offer prayers and have darshan of Ram Lala. For the past many days, the whole of Ayodhya is resonating with an unparalleled wave of devotional fervour with the presence of thousands of sadhus, saints and devotees from across the world.
500 साल के बाद अभी भगवान तो अपने मंदिर में बैठा है तो जरूर उनका दर्शन करना चाहिए ना
जी बहुत ही सुंदर प्रतिमा और बहुत ही अच्छी अनुभूति हुई है अंदर जाके मतलब बिल्कुल आप अगर सच्चे सनातनी हैं तो आपके आंसू निकल जाएंगे क्योंकि वो विग्रह है वो हम समझ सकते हैं कि 500 साल का जो हिंदुत्व का जो संघर्ष है वो वहाँ पे अंदर जाके लोग उन मतलब उस मंदिर से गले लग लग के रो रहे हैं
आए नहीं कभी भी हम लोग अयोध्या पहले बट पहली बार आए हैं और एकदम मन एकदम भर गया हमारा और दोबारा और कई बार आने का मन है
Shri Ram Janmabhoomi Tirth Kshetra Trust has finalized the rules of Ram Lala Puja in the Shri Ram temple. Devotees can seek blessings from 7 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. and from 2 p.m. to 7 p.m. in the evening. For morning Aarti, which is a Hindu ritual, advance booking is required. Same-day booking is possible for the evening Aarti. The timing of Jagran Shringar Aarti is 6:30 a.m. and Sandhya Aarti is at 7:30 p.m. To book for Aarti or Darshan, devotees have to visit the official website, register their mobile number. Visitors will receive an OTP for registration. Visitors have to go to My Profile and book the desired slot. Visitors have to provide credentials and book their passes. One can collect the pass from the temple counter before entering the premises. The offline same-day booking will be done based on the availability of slots. Devotees have to be present at the temple premises 30 minutes before the Aarti. For Aarti passes, devotees will have to carry a valid government ID proof. More than 1.5 lakh devotees are expected to come every day. Considering this, every devotee gets only 15 to 20 seconds to visit Ram Lala. With Meghna Dev, Bureau Report, DD India.
And DD India's Meghna Dev is now with us live, joining from Ayodhya. Good evening to you, Meghna. It was a landmark day yesterday, and with the consecration taking place, and it seems it's been another landmark day today with the throwing open of the grand main entrance of the Sri Ram temple. Tell us all about it.
Definitely, and we saw those visuals wherein people flew in like swarms of bees, and there was a huge crowd that has come. People actually wanted to visit the temple complex, worship Ram Lala. Very importantly, what we see here is that there was quite, in fact, struggle for the security personnel to actually regulate the crowd, because this was unexpected. People have been coming from different places by their own cars, by their own vehicles, also by public transport and much more. And people few people here were waiting since days and were actually stationed in Ayodhya itself, so that after the consecration ceremony they'll be able to visit the temple. So definitely we see something that today definitely was a landmark day. One very important thing, that today the markets are all open and there is a lot of crowd which is actually going around shopping for souvenirs, shopping for gifts for their loved ones, temple souvenirs and much more. So that is something that is, catching up, because the past 1 week, quite a shop did not open all the time. So definitely this is a big difference that we see, and a number of people were there. But today, since the crowd is huge, the reason that all the shops are, very, very crowded, and there is a lot of crowd which is shopping for the articles that are used for worship, also these flags and these clothes and much more, where Sri Ram is written, beat the models of the Ram temple made out of wood, carved out of wood. So all of these things are definitely picking up quite a lot, and the shopkeepers also tell us that they have seen a surge in the past couple of days itself, and today definitely it's reached its peak.
Well, definitely that is bound to happen. The kind of event that has taken place, such a landmark one, and people definitely going there to get a glimpse somehow of the deity there. Thanks a lot for joining us and telling us about it, Meghna Dev. Now, Canada has announced that it is imposing an immediate 2-year cap on new international student visas to tackle a housing crisis and target institutional bad actors, a move that is likely to impact Indians planning to study in the country. Canada's Immigration Minister, Mark Miller, has said as part of the cap, there will be a 35% reduction in new study visas in 2024. The cap is expected to result in 364,000 new approved permits in 2024. Nearly 560,000 study visas were issued last year. Now let's take a look at some of the other updates that have been making news around the world. German train drivers are set to stage a record 6-day strike from Wednesday after their union rejected state-owned rail operator Deutsche Bahn's latest wage offer. This will be the longest strike in Deutsche Bahn's history and will begin in the early hours of the 24th of January, which is tomorrow. EU ministers of agriculture and fisheries met in Brussels, where they discussed trade-related agricultural issues, strategic dialogue on the future of agriculture in Europe, and also held a first exchange of views on the proposed regulation for resilient European forests. Braving bitter cold and wind, archaeologists in Serbia surveyed the site of an ancient Roman triumphal arch that dates back to the 3rd century. The triumphal arch was discovered in December at the site of Vimanaseum, some 70 kilometers east of Belgrade. Japanese nuclear power plant operator TEPCO wrapped up testing of the first drones to be deployed to the wreckage of the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant in its decades-long decommissioning process. A snake-shaped robo and 4 drones are said to be dispatched in February to survey the damage at Fukushima Daiichi's Unit 1 reactor. And still to come on DD India News Hour, we'll be talking about the primary that is going on in New Hampshire in the US and the possible outcomes that could be there with our guest expert next. Full dress rehearsal was carried out for India's Republic Day parade in New Delhi. And countries across the northern hemisphere of the globe are battling biting cold.
Voice of a rising aspirational world. Stories of challenges, struggles and accomplishment. A world battling conflict, hunger and poverty. Embracing growth, development, science and technology. A voice of progress, a voice of unity. Watch Voice of the Global South with me, Akshay Dongre, only on DD India.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Gautam Roy. Before we go any further, another look at our top stories. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi unveils Bharat Parv 2024 on the occasion of Parakram Divas at the Red Fort in New Delhi, says the world watches India's every action eagerly and enthusiastically. Nikki Haley sweeps the 6-person midnight vote in Dixwell Notch as voters in the state of New Hampshire cast the first votes in her clash with Donald Trump. And in the Australian Open, Coco Gauff grinds past Marta Kostyuk in the women's singles semis. Novak Djokovic beats Taylor Fritz to enter the men's last 4. Well, now let's talk about one of our top stories, which is about the ongoing New Hampshire primary. First in the entire nation, because what happened in Iowa was a caucus or caucuses, And this is a battle for the Republicans that's now solely against between Nikki Haley and Donald Trump. The Democrats have a different, slightly strange story where Joe Biden's not even on the ballot as far as the New Hampshire primary is concerned. But let's talk about it in detail. Professor Swaran Singh of the School of International Studies at the Jawaharlal Nehru University in Delhi joins us. Good evening to you, Professor. What do you make of what's happening in New Hampshire in terms of how determinant could it be in the overall contest for the US presidential race?
I think especially, Gautam, what happened in Iowa in terms of the difference in voting that is reported, that Donald Trump received about 51% of the votes compared to the runner-up Governor Ron DeSantis at 21% and Nikki Haley at 19%, has kind of created a mood, especially when the runner-up Governor Ron DeSantis has withdrawn now from the race, and race basically is between Nikki Haley, who received 19% in Iowa caucuses.
And he's withdrawn in the favor of Donald Trump.
Yes. So though there are the initial sort of polls that various agencies are giving of what is happening in New Hampshire today, saying that the margin between the former President Donald Trump and Nikki Haley is really reducing. And indeed, some of the agencies are saying that if they are looking at opinion polls across party lines, then at least in New Hampshire, the surveys show Nikki Haley is seen as a stronger candidate against Democratic candidate Joe Biden. So I think it's an interesting outcome which is awaited as to what happens in New Hampshire. Historically also, New Hampshire is usually seen as the first sort of place to have primaries and sets the tone, especially for those various funding agencies who want to support a kind of a candidate who shows an early lead over other candidates. In this case, Donald Trump is really appearing to be kind of a possible candidate that Republicans are going to throw up. And depending on how much margin Nikki Haley is able to manage to reduce, then that contest within the GOP could continue for some more primaries. Otherwise, I think this could be very decisive right now as to whatever is the outcome of New Hampshire here. You mentioned about Joe Biden's name not in the primary of New Hampshire when it comes to Republicans.
Democrats.
That is a very interesting twist. That's a very interesting twist if I can share in 30 seconds. Democrats have decided to reorganize the timetable for how they will hold plenaries. And New Hampshire was not supposed to be one to start with. But New Hampshire has gone ahead and persisted that they will be the first to go ahead even for the Democratic
Yes,
primaries.
it has a law since 1975 that it has to be the first.
Yes, so that is the twist here.
Yeah. Now, New Hampshire again, if you look at since the 50s, only thrice has the person who won the primaries in New Hampshire has not gone on to get the candidacy for the Republican Party. So New Hampshire is kind of a bellwether state in that regard as well. But let's consider the two possibilities. What happens if Donald Trump wins? And what happens if Nikki Haley wins?
I think definitely the first thing that makes the fundamental difference is that Nikki Haley would become the first woman president of the United States.
No, I'm talking about this primary.
Okay, sorry. That seems to be a little far-fetced possibility, though we believe that there's a large number of moderate and neutral sort of Republicans in New Hampshire. So then, of course, it could mean that the most estimates are that the margin could come down really closer compared to what happened in Iowa, where the difference is really huge. Trump has received more than 50% of votes. But of course, the caucuses have a very different culture of open voting and voice voting. And I think very often the contrast is much more in such situations. In secret ballot votes, in case of primaries, voters are far more sort of objective and sort of clear about what they want to see. and they are less restrained in terms of visible pressure tactics of
yes. And Professor, also in the case of New Hampshire, even independent voters can, just ask for the ballot of either Republicans or Democrats. They don't have to be registered with the party to vote in this primary. So do you think they could also be an X factor here?
They could be, definitely, as I mentioned earlier, that when you have seen surveys across party lines, including people who are sometimes not in any party, and they have kind of favored Nikki Haley. But then there are conspiracy theories also. Maybe Democrats are trying to create internal sort of disjunction between Trump and Nikki Haley and push Nikki Haley's case in that sense. But I think for your viewers, it is important to understand that there are two kinds of primaries that happens in US presidential elections. They're called open and closed primaries. And then there are quasi-open and quasi-closed primaries. Closed primaries are meant only for the registered voters of the party whose primary is taking place. And open primaries would mean that any voter who's registered as a voter could come and cast his vote in favor of a candidate. This is still within the party primaries in that sense. So there is a possibility that it is not clearly the most conservative state here, which is going to be clearly siding with one candidate. There is a space here where Nikki Haley could, and she's trying to do door-to-door campaign and handshakes and all that to see. And you mentioned of the initial very small example of a very small number of voters where she has really taken the lead. And that is the kind of enthusiasm that is seen in the camp of Nikki Haley. But so far, whatever is the larger trend, I think former President Donald Trump is really emerging as a very strong candidate.
Yes. Why do you think is that the case? Because is that because Donald Trump is being successfully able to paint Nikki Haley as one who's being funded secretly by Democrats, supported by Democrats? He's saying independent voters will come and vote in favor of her as well in this New Hampshire primary. Nikki Haley saying, nothing of that sort. I have a different agenda from Donald Trump and Biden. They're the two, really fossilized people in the race, and people don't really approve. She's saying majority of Americans don't want to see a Trump and Biden face-off.
Gautam, what you see is, I think, unusual in case of Trump's sort of followers, is that they are not really very often open to, arguments in that sense. They kind of really believe in what he says. And he's also often very rhetorical and very often very blunt about things that he talks about other candidates and things that are happening to him. He is still in denial of 2020 elections. Even now he doesn't believe that he actually lost in 2020 elections. And there is a segment of his followers who actually trust him on that. So I think he has a basic, certain percentage of voters who are really followers of whatever he says. And that, therefore, he has to only work on expanding the margins to other voters who are likely to sort of go either in terms of Nikki Haley way or, sort of just not be very enthusiastic to come and participate in these primaries in that sense. So he's focusing on that. And Nikki Haley, of course, is underlining the age and experience that she has, and she's a woman candidate and has her own followings in that sense. She has different views on several issues in that sense. But as of now, the only estimates that are being made in various projections is a very strong likelihood of Nikki Haley sort of coming closer and reducing the margin that we saw in the caucuses in Iowa. And that would mean that the race for GOP nomination will continue strongly in coming months till, June.
Yes, let's see what happens because right now the information is that there are polls saying that Trump is even ahead of Nikki Haley in South Carolina, where she's been governor and she's been focusing all her attention there. That primary is going to happen towards the end of next month. So there will be some breathing time, breathing space between what's happening in New Hampshire and what will happen next in South Carolina. So let's see what kind of a call does Nikki Haley take, depending on the outcome of New Hampshire, which we'll start getting to know towards the morning where India time is concerned. And soon after the polls close, I guess some trends will start coming in. Thank you for joining us till then, Professor Swan Singh. Now, former Chief Minister of Bihar, Karpuri Thakur, has been awarded Bharat Ratna posthumously by the Indian government. Karpuri Thakur was known for championing the cause of backward classes. In a social media post, India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi said that this prestigious recognition is a testament to Karpuri Thakur's enduring efforts as a champion of the marginalized and a stalwart of equality and empowerment. To quote him, "I'm delighted that the Government of India has decided to confer the Bharat Ratna on the beacon of social justice, the great Jananayak Karpuri Thakur ji, and that too at a time when we're marking his birth anniversary. This prestigious recognition is a testament to his enduring efforts as a champion for the marginalized and a stalwart of equality and empowerment." The PM also said his unwavering commitment to uplift the downtrodden and his visionary leadership have left an indelible mark on India's socio-political fabric. This award not only honors his remarkable contributions, but also inspires us to continue his mission of creating a more just and equitable society. India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar concluded his Nigeria visit with an address to the Nigeria-India Business Council today. The minister said that investment and trade are at the heart of the partnership between the two countries. The minister further pushed for taking ties to a higher level. The event was attended by Nigeria's Ministers of Trade, Budget and Economic Planning, Blue Economy and Steel Development, as well as the Governor of Nasarawa.
Africa is rising, and India is betting on Africa's rise. We are betting on Africa's rise because by any objective assessment, today there is so much going for Africa in terms of demography, in terms of resources, in terms of ambition, in terms of increasingly of policy alignments that clearly portend a very different, a much more positive future in the very short term. For us, the reordering of the world, the rebalancing, the multipolarity of the world will not be complete until Africa takes its due place.
The Government of India's largest ever outreach initiative, Viksit Bharat Sankalp Yatra, is being conducted in various parts of Mizoram. The events were held in Buarpui, Lingli district and Songrasuri and Borapansuri in the Langtlai district. Additionally, Dampui, Bimbung and Haryanghumuna hosted VBSY activities on Tuesday. Several departments explained the central government's initiatives and benefits for the people in agriculture, financial inclusion and health sector. Schemes in the agriculture department included Pradhan Mantri Kisan Maan Dhan Yojana and Pradhan Mantri Kisan Samman Nidhi Yojana, while health and family welfare covered Ayushman Bharat benefits, PM Jan Arogya Yojana, PM Bharatiya Jan Aushadhi Pariyojana, among others. The full-dress rehearsal of India's Republic Day parade was held at the Indian capital, Delhi's Kartavya Path on Tuesday. The Delhi police made detailed traffic arrangements for the smooth conduct of the parade along the route. The forces were seen rehearsing at the National War Memorial in Delhi as well. The parade rehearsal began from Vijay Chowk and then it proceeded towards the Red Fort. Ahead of the parade on the 26th of this month, which is 2 days' time, the Delhi police had issued an advisory updating about the traffic situation. Let's start looking at some of the other updates from around the country as well. 3 employees of Western Railways lost their lives in the state of Uttar Pradesh while attending signalling point issues which reportedly failed. The workers were run over by a passing local train and died on the spot. Western Railways has ordered an inquiry into the incident. Ahead of India's Republic Day celebrations on the 26th of January, the Indian Navy has posted a preparation video on their X handle. The Navy is parading a mixed composition platoon for the first time, wherein 144 young men and women will be marching down the historic Kartavya Path, shoulder to shoulder, epitomizing the Navy's commitment towards gender neutrality. 6 people were injured after a plane from the Army of Myanmar crashed at Lingpui Airport in the northeastern state of Mizoram. 14 people were on board with the pilot. The injured were admitted to a local hospital. India's Home Minister Amit Shah attended the 5th International and 44th All India Criminology Conference of National Forensic Sciences University in India's Gujarat. He said that the inauguration is happening at a time when India's criminal justice system is entering a new era. IPC, CRPC and evidence law have been scrapped and new laws have been introduced. And still to come on DD India News Hour, Indian women's team is all set to play inaugural edition of the FIH Hockey Women's World Cup. And the nominations for the 2024 Oscars are in, with Oppenheimer getting 13 nods, Poor Things 11, Killers of the Flower Moon 10 and Barbie 8.
We just don't bring you the news as it unfolds. We get to the heart of the matter.
We don't just present facts. We demystify complex social, political and economic events.
We break stories that shape the world's present and future because you deserve the truth.
I am Tanvi Taneja from New Delhi.
I'm Ollie Barrett from London.
I'm Nick Harper from Washington, D.C.
Join us on DD India Global Monday to Friday at these times.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Gautam Roy. Let's now look at weather conditions around the world as well, where India's national capital continues to deal with fog and bitter cold, causing flight and train delays. Death toll in China's landslide has risen to 20, while Australia says that a cyclone is likely to hit the country later this week.
Countries across the globe are tackling biting cold. Adverse weather conditions continue to affect the road, rail and air traffic in India's national capital. New Delhi recorded 6.9 degrees Celsius minimum temperature on Tuesday morning. The Indian Meteorological Department has predicted moderate fog till January 28th in many parts of North India. Winters kept an icy grip across much of the United States, with at least 83 weather-related fatalities reported. The winter storm brought heavy rain and widespread flooding in San Diego on Monday, causing a state of emergency and knocking out power to 5,000 homes. Many roads and schools were also closed amid the downpour. The death toll from a landslide in China's southwestern province of Yunnan has now risen to 20, as the rescue workers battle extreme cold wave conditions to rescue several dozen people who are buried. Storm Isha hit the United Kingdom and Ireland, bringing large waves crashing against England's southwest coast. The storm disrupted travel and airlines, with over 100 flights cancelled and thousands of homes left without power. Workers in Scotland worked to remove debris from vehicles. The Weather Bureau in Australia has said a tropical low in the Coral Sea will likely develop into a cyclone and hit Australia's northeast later this week. Bureau Report, DD India.
And time now to get you some sporting updates as well. Hockey first, and the Indian women's team is all set to play inaugural edition of the FIH Hockey Women's World Cup. The tournament is set to take place from the 21st to the 27th of this month in Muscat, Oman. The Indian women's team find themselves in Pool C alongside the United States of America, Poland and Namibia. India will play their first match against Poland on the 24th of January, which is Wednesday, tomorrow. Well, the Khelo India scheme is playing a pivotal role in making India a sporting powerhouse, with the inclusion of more sports from across the country. It's given wings to dreams of many budding sportspersons. Take a look at this report.
6th edition of Khelo India Youth Games has created many firsts, including addition of squash and several demo sports. As the popularity of Khelo India Games gains ground, the biggest beneficiaries are the players.
This is my first Khelo India. This is my first participating. It was good, the food, everything. They had give us the clothes like upper, lower, everything, back socks, everything. It is benefit for us.
Not only Khelo India is helping players to realize their dream of making it to an international podium, but the better facilities and infrastructure has improved the quality of performance.
And this Khelo India has made a lot of difference because the younger generation start flying from 12 to 14 years itself. We can identify those children in respective sports and we can train them. Now the government of India and sports ministry brought new policies like Olympic academics or some like that and all. They bought it. Because of that, there is a lot of improvement in our country, and definitely we become a superpower of our country in sports.
With such facilities, parents are also motivated to engage their children in more sporting activities.
It is very open and a lot of talented people they can come here. That is the main motto for creating a Khelo India. It is for creating future kids or children for Olympic days. And this is a great chance. If you would have there means you would have performed like anything.
The Khelo India scheme is playing a pivotal role in making India a sporting powerhouse, and with inclusion of more and different sports from across the country, the reach and participation is growing widely. Deepika Mehto's report for DD India.
Indian batter Rohit Sharma has been named captain of the ICC men's ODI team of 2023, which also includes 6 Indian players. Apart from Rohit, the other Indians in the squad are batters Virat Kohli and Shubman Gill, spinner Kuldeep Yadav and pacers Mohammad Siraj and Mohammad Shami. In 2023, Rohit scored 1,255 runs at an average of 52. The other 2 teams that have more than 1 player in the ICC squad are world champions Australia and South Africa. Both of them have 2 cricketers each in the team, while all-rounder Daryl Mitchell is the only representative from New Zealand. South Africa's batter, Heinrich Klaasen, has been named as wicketkeeper. Historical dramas Oppenheimer and Killers of the Flower Moon will compete with Barbie and other films for Best Picture at this year's Academy Awards. Other Best Picture nominees announced on Tuesday include Poor Things, Maestro and American Fiction. Oppenheimer outpaced all other films with 13 nominations, including acting nods for stars Cillian Murphy, Emily Blunt and Robert Downey Jr. Meanwhile, Poor Things, starring Emma Stone as a woman revived from the dead, received 11 nominations. Barbie got 6.
By an actress in a leading role. Annette Bening. Lily Gladstone in Killers of the Flower Moon. Sandra Julia in Anatomy of a Fall.
And The Zone of Interest. James Wilson, producer.
That's all we have for this edition of DD India News Hour, but let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. You can connect with us on Facebook, X, as well as Instagram. We'll be back with more news and updates as a break here on DD India. I'm Gautam Roy from all of us here in Delhi. Thanks for watching DD India News Hour.